Where there is smoke, there is fire. And that's why, even though we have already made a video talking about this guy and this team, I think it is only appropriate to reopen that can of worms. Because last time we talked about it, it wasn't as mainstream or high profile as it is now. Of course, you know him, you love him. Today we are heading over to the Vancouver Canucks and talking about Mr. Checked Out Himself 2.0 after one, JT Miller. Today we're talking about Quinn Hughes, and sorry, I feel kind of lukewarm, not too bad, just kind of apathetic when it comes to talking about Quinn Hughes and the Vancouver Canucks these days. It just feels like the guy's going to leave. It feels like the guy doesn't have any sort of an idea or an inkling in his brain that this team has what it takes to contend, and I don't blame him at all. The Vancouver Canucks have been a tire fire of an organization from top to bottom throughout the course of this season, from the guys up top commanding and pushing the buttons, to the guys in the middle that are supposed to be making the trades and making the team better, and then the guys in the locker room itself who are trying their best, but who are just not good enough because half of them are gosh darn AHL talents and the rest of them are all injured. It's been a very rough go for Quinn Hughes and the Vancouver Canucks. And I think at this stage, watching the guy's body language, watching the guy go out there and still try to do stuff on the ice. Maybe he's trying a little bit too hard. He's not passing it to Elias Pettersson anymore. But for Quinn Hughes to be in this position, it just doesn't feel like a fight worth fighting anymore. In my brain, I would say. It doesn't feel like it's worth it to justify in my Vancouver Canucks-centered mind that this guy's going to stick around. It feels like he is gone. Feels like he's checked out. It's not his fault, but it is unfortunate to say the least. Anyways, enough talking about Quinn Hughes. He's been doing pretty well this season. 22 points, 22 games. He's a point-per-game guy. And, of course, he can be a lot better than that if he was on a better team and if he was more motivated, I would say, to pass the puck a little more. But we are talking about the Detroit Red Wings and the boys over in Michigan as a trade destination for Quinn Hughes because of what was talked about by Jeff Marek and Pierre Maguire on the latest episode of The Sheet with Jeff Marek from earlier 2 days ago. This was a conversation that was posted onto Twitter. Detroit's gotta be in the mix. Pierre Maguire and Jeff Marek dig into the possibility of Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings taking a serious run at Quinn Hughes. And then the clip is over here. You can dive into it yourself. I don't want to play it because, of course, it's, The Sheet. It's their own show. Link is going to be in the description if you want to watch it yourself. But this idea of Quinn Hughes going over to Detroit is not technically new. I'd say that as far back as 2018, there were conversations about Quinn Hughes potentially being a Detroit Red Wing, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was drafted out of the University of Michigan Wolverine system in 2018. He was under a point-per-game D-man in that stint heading into the 2018 NHL Entry Draft. And when the Red Wings passed up on Quinn to take Filip Zadina 6th overall, at the time it was seen as a reasonable move because Zadina was ranked 3rd, but he ended up slipping to number 6. But it left Quinn Hughes available for Jim Benning, who really, really wanted to take him at 7th for the Vancouver Canucks. He got taken, and now he's the best franchise defenseman the Canucks have ever had. Speaking about that, though, this is why we dive into the Detroit possibility. Liam goes out there and says if Detroit can get Quinn Hughes, they would have the best deep pair in hockey. Hughes and Seider would be such a match in heaven. Don't get me wrong, Hughes and Phil Hronek has been pretty good, but Hronek is a lot more of an offensive-leaning guy, and he's a little bit more dynamic, I'd say, than Mo Seider. Seider, though, is just a total wall. That guy makes no mistakes in his own zone. He's reliable, he's sturdy, he is solid. You could even argue that Mo Seider's stability allows Quinn Hughes to activate even more. We all know that Rick Tocchet kind of brainwashed this guy into believing he is a 30-goal scorer, so if he's playing with a guy who's a lot more defensively minded in a guy like Mo Seider, Who knows if that would allow Quinn to be a lot more extroverted offensively, and if it'll lead to more rush chances and more actual points. Just a thought there. But of course, this idea of trading Quinn Hughes over to Detroit exists in two capacities. One, is it just a trade for a guy who's going over for the last year of his deal? Or two, would you trade him and expect to sign him to an extension? Either option, I think, is reasonable, but it has been discussed by various NHL media and insiders that maybe because Quinn Hughes was a Michigan guy, there could be an idea that says he and his brothers all head over to Detroit rather than New Jersey. They all want to play together, but does that have to be with the Devils specifically? Who really knows? With that in mind, though, let's dive into what some Red Wings fans are saying in regards to this Quinn Hughes conversation, courtesy of the Detroit Red Wings daily discussion thread on their subreddit from earlier yesterday. Orlights went out there and posted this at the bottom. There's a lot of smoke around Quinn Hughes to Detroit, if not the Devils. What would it take for the Red Wings to land Hughes? I've seen articles with Axel Sandin-Pellikka, and some even as rich as Lucas Raymond. I'm not on board with either of those. I'm no expert in NHL trade values, so I'm curious what others think a deal could potentially look like. And the top reply from Wings Nation says Hughes is an elite .95 point per game, 26-year-old defenseman. If it's not 1-for-1 for another elite talent, it'd have to be a very strong package deal with a mix of draft picks and prospects and maybe some mid-tier NHLers. Tactical Almond said, Axel Sandin-Pellikka could be anything. He could even be a Quinn Hughes. You always take a known talent rather than an unproven prospect. In my opinion, the only players that are untouchable are Larkin, Raymond, Ed, and Seider. I won't be happy giving up Cat, but a trade of this magnitude usually doesn't feel comfortable. We can't give up Seider or Edvinsson. This trade would be a wash. I'm not saying that they're as good as Hughes, but it would leave the exact same hole in their game that plagues the Red Wings now. If I was doing a trade package and Hughes confirms he'll re-sign, the package would look something like a first-round pick, Casper or Danielson, ASP. I don't see them wanting Kosa or Augustine, as they seem to have a good goalie development system, but an unprotected first and 2 premium assets seems like it could get it done. And honestly, as a guy who understands the bulk of what Detroit is building, I'd say that this sort of a package is a little short. Just in my subjective opinion here, I am valuing Quinn Hughes as the second best defenseman in the National Hockey League. And if you are assuming that he's going to re-sign, then yeah, okay, Axel Sandin-Pellikka is an automatic. You have to toss that in there. It's not going to feel good for Red Wings fans, of course, but just think, Axel Sandin-Pellikka is going to become better later on in his career, but is he going to be better than Quinn Hughes is at the moment? I'm not too sure. ASP could become as good as Quinn Hughes, and if he does do that, then great, but you just don't know. It's not guaranteed. Quinn was really good to open up his NHL career, but he didn't necessarily explode into the player that he is now until, I want to say, 2023-ish. He was great for the first 3 years of his career. We already saw that he was able to cook and he was able to move in the offensive zone in a way that very few National Hockey League players can. But then the year after, he just started going sicko mode and started producing at a point-per-game clip, winning a Norris and scoring 17 goals in a season. So, Quinn Hughes, this is the kind of guy that if Axel Sandin-Pellikka becomes even 80% of what Quinn is, you're very happy. But we just don't know, so you have to toss him in there. Along with the first, probably with another young guy, I'd say I'd value maybe a Nate Danielson a little more than Marco Kasper long-term, assuming you're not going to go out there and just immediately put them in a top spot. Vancouver does need centers, though. Danielson and Coots. That's really interesting. Maybe you take that trade package with Danielson, ASP, a first, and you add maybe a second or something, and then you can probably get me to bite on a Quinn Hughes deal. But, hey, let's be real here. When you're thinking about Axel Sandin-Pellikka coming back the other way, he's been very good. If he becomes a shade of Quinn Hughes, I think you're probably happy with that. At the end of the day, though, this is a pretty intriguing conversation for some Michigan dudes that could be ending in a winged wheeled sweater. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of Quinn Hughes potentially going over to Detroit, and what is your thought on the trade package? Lucas Raymond is a lot. I don't know if Detroit would be interested in trading him away. But anything with young guys, I kind of like that for Vancouver way more. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about a Quinn Hughes trade package to Detroit. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.